Let's get a little more into that personality. I think you touched upon personality to the kind of brands that we'll be building and the emotional factor. So can you talk to us more about what do you mean when you say, let's add personality to this branding? What are some examples that you've seen that sticks? And what are some practical ways to get started?
Yeah. So there's some academic research that was done by Jennifer Aker. She was at Berkeley at the time, and she analyzed the brands with the most brand value, in the world.
Mhm.
And she found that all of them came down to having the personalities of these brands. And we're talking about, big Fortune 100 type brands. They came down to spiking in 2 of 5 dimensions of brand personality. And so if you think about, like Rolex, super
Mhm.
fancy, right? And like premium, they are sophisticated and competent. Those are the 2. If you
Mhm.
think about a brand like Red Bull, right? Like
Mhm.
Red Bull, the drink, they are rugged and exciting. So it's very reductive to think like there's only 5 personality attributes or 5 personality dimensions. And if you
Mhm.
if you have a clear personality, you spike in 2 of the 5. And what you
Right.
see is a lot of tech brands end up spiking in sincerity and competence. And if you think about Amazon, Google, um, they all spike in sincerity and competence.
Mhm.
But they feel different, right? So how do they feel different within there? So I always encourage founders, one, to understand those 5 dimensions, and then to figure out which 2 they spike in. And then beyond that, to think of their personality as a 5-point star, the brand's personality as a 5-point star. And the points of the star are each adjectives that you're going to use to describe your brand that
Mhm.
reflect those 2 dimensions. So if you think
Mhm.
about like those, rugged, exciting brands like the Mountain Dews and the Red Bulls and, those kind of brands, the big dimensions are excitement and ruggedness. But then the
Mhm.
attributes might be like rebelliousness, speed, they move fast,
Mhm.
they're hip and trendy. Like there's different attributes within that. So I really encourage founders to do this exercise, to pick the 2 and then to pick the
Okay.
5. And that would be
Okay.
how
So,
to start. And then when you end up with 5 adjectives, and
mm,
the adjectives, like you can do it as a person, as practice. Like I've done it for myself. And then you can do it for your brand.
mhm.
And then once you have the 5 adjectives, you end up writing them in this way. You say, like, Google is playful, but they're not silly. So you say,
Uh-huh.
I am playful, but not silly. And you write them each like that. And then what you end up having is a little guide that says, we are each of these 5 things, but let's calibrate it. We're not
Mm.
silly. We're not, or maybe we are exciting, but not rebellious, or we are
Right.
adventurous, but not reckless. And you kind of calibrate each of those. So then you really have like, these are the 5, and you work really hard to
Mm.
pick 5 that work hard for you. And then every time you have a piece of marketing collateral, whether it's a blog post and it's your tone of voice, your website, a podcast you do, whatever it is, you make sure that you're reflecting that personality. That's how I
Right.
start.
Got it. Got it. Yeah, I think it's super interesting. And like these 2 dimensions and the 5 pointers that we pick, these are like words and phrases that you can choose, right? Like, with respect to starting with those 2 dimensions and then going on to define more as adjectives or more like qualifiers of where you would belong, right?
Yeah, the 5 are set. So you pick from a list of
Okay.
5. The 5 attributes, you pick 2 of them, right? You say we're
Got
gonna
it.
be these.
And what are those
Then
five?
once
Like,
you those
it's
5 are sincerity,
mhm.
excitement, competence, sophistication, and ruggedness. Those are the
Oh,
5.
nice, nice, nice.
Yeah.